Good afternoon, everyone. Nick Butler here from Modeshift STARS. The next presentation you're about to hear is all about how you guys can help your school and help your local authority promote more sustainable and active travel by becoming a youth travel ambassador. I'm Nick Butler, the accreditation manager for the Modeshift STARS scheme, and over the next few slides I'll give you a little bit of an introduction to that before getting into the information about a YTA. So first of all, Modeshift STARS, what is it all about? Basically, it's about effective travel plans. So effective travel plans are essential for us to ensure a healthier, greener and safer future as they promote and enable more sustainable and active modes of travel. So these are happening in schools and businesses across the UK. They are basically an action plan that sets out a range of initiatives and actions that encourage sustainable modes, so walking, cycling, public transport, and discourage unsustainable modes, particularly single occupancy car use. So we currently work with thousands of businesses, education and community settings across the UK to make sure that travel plans are better. There's lots of them happening around the country at the moment. There's lots developed, but what we're all about is making sure that those travel plans that are written are actually delivered and are effective. And we recognise and reward those effective travel plans with Modeshift STARS accreditation. What the Modeshift STARS schemes enables an organisation to do is create a travel plan online, deliver their travel plan and monitor their travel plan by providing this centre of excellence for organisations to use our scheme. So I've kind of touched on this, but today I'll give you a quick overview of the STARS scheme to begin with, and then a little bit more focus on the STARS Youth Travel Ambassador scheme. To start with, just a bit of background information on how people currently get to school. So these are statistics for all pupils aged 5 to 15 from the date range 1995-97 through to 2017. And it all comes from the National Travel Survey, which is an annual survey that the Department for Transport does each year. We're about a year out of date. The data is published sort of behind times. So the latest data set is for 2018 at the moment. So this graph's slightly out of date, but still pretty, nothing much has changed in that time, in that last year. So what we're looking at, the top line there in blue, is the current levels of pupils who walk to school. So you see right back in 1995, around 47% of pupils walked. And over time, it's not dropped hugely, but it's not dropped nonetheless down to 44% in 2017. The next line is the car figure, so pupils that are driven to school, and that's increased from 30% back in 1995 and increased to 35% in 2017. So again, not huge fluctuations over time, but what's more concerning for us is that walking and car use figure is coming closer together. And what we really don't want to see is those two lines crossing over. So there's lots of efforts nationally to increase levels of walking and ensure that that stays as the most popular form of transport for getting to and from school. The figures further down in the graph show the private bus, local bus, rail and cycling, but they're sort of too small and too linked together to give a real good indicator. But just for example, cycling is currently about 1% nationally. Some other figures popping up on the right that shows the potential we have to increase sustainable travel. So this data is even older. It's about 10 years old is this data from something called the school census. But what that allowed us to do was compare pupil postcode, i.e. the place that they live and travel to school from, with the mode of travel that they use to get to school. And what that data showed us is that 8.2% of all car trips to school, so every single morning, 8.2% of car trips on the journey to school were under a quarter of a mile, which is a distance that could generally be walked in about 5 minutes. Further to that, another 21.1% of car journeys were between a quarter and half a mile, a distance that could easily be walked in 10 minutes. So you see, you add those two figures together, we back in 2010, and I doubt very much it's changed massively since then, but we had around 330,000 car trips every single day on the school run for distances of less than half a mile, distances that could be walked in less than 10 minutes. So there's huge potential to flip that and get more active travel, get more cars off the road, and therefore reduced vehicle emissions on the school run. So what we're doing about that is STARS accreditation. I've already said what effective travel plans are all about, and we exist to provide accreditation to schools, businesses, and community organisations that deliver their travel plans and address that sort of change in how people travel and encourage more people to choose those sustainable options. It's all about delivery rather than just focusing on creating strategies and documents. So there's a quick process here in this figure of 8 diagram. So a school registers for STARS. They audit the site in terms of what sort of travel and transport infrastructure is in place. Do they have cycle parking, facilities for storing helmets, clothing, that sort of thing? What are the pedestrian entrances like? What are the speed of traffic like? Are there good crossing facilities? All sort of things that could affect a person's choice on how they make the journey to school. So with that site audit in place, you also do a survey. So how do people currently travel to school? How would they like to travel to school? Would they prefer to walk or cycle or use a bus if that option was available to them? With that information, with the site audit, with the survey information, a school can then plan and deliver a whole range of actions that would look at bringing about behaviour change then to more sustainable travel. Once they've delivered actions, and only once they've delivered a range of actions, they'll be able to then apply for STARS accreditation. And once they achieve that accreditation, it's always supposed to be an ongoing process of planning, delivering, and reviewing, so that we continue to lock in the benefits that we've seen, the increases in active travel, and continue to promote more and more walking and cycling. Just some more rationale of why we focus on schools. So there are around 24,000 schools in England. Within those, around 8.7 million pupils and around 900,000 teaching staff. So delivering these effective school travel plans affects directly around 10 million people in England, or alternatively around 18% of the population. That's not the end of the story, because when you add everyone else in, you add in families and dependents and guardians and neighbours and everyone else, then we're thinking of much bigger numbers that travel planning affects. So the 2013 census showed around 7.7 million families with dependent children in the UK. When you add in those parents and everyone else, we reckon 20 to 25 million are affected by school travel plans. So around 36 to 45% of the population. The map here on the left shows where all of our accredited schools are. So the figure on the right actually shows 1,462, but we've just recently passed our 1,500th school. So we've got just over 1,500 schools accredited in the UK. And between them, they've had 2,300 successful accreditation applications. And here are our accreditation levels. So schools can apply for the Green Award for just having the travel plan in place. And then following on from that, from delivering their travel plan, we have the Bronze, Silver, Gold, and shortly to be launched in January, our STARS Platinum Award. So these are all levels that all schools in England can currently apply for. Beyond the awards, beyond the accreditation, we also have the National School Travel Awards, which are supported by the Department for Transport. So each year, local authorities can submit their very best schools for the STARS schools of the region. And we host a series of regional events around the country to celebrate the success and share the best practice of those schools. And then from our schools of the region, we then have the national awards. Both of these series of events are backed by the Department for Transport. So you'll catch the images on the right there are actually at Portcullis House in the Houses of Parliament, where the National Schools of the Year were invited to come and celebrate their success and share their stories with ministers, with government ministers. The good news for us is that STARS works. So these figures show the impact that STARS accreditation has had on schools. Over on the left-hand side, the top left shows the average reduction in car use for any school that's achieved accreditation, be that bronze, silver, or gold. So on average, we've seen a 9% reduction in car travel for the journey to school. And bottom left, that shows it corresponds with an increase in walking to school of 2.4%. Figures in the middle are for our silver and gold schools. So on average, they reduce car use by 22.2%, and then walking increase of 4.7%. And then finally, on the right-hand side, an increase in cycling. So this figure is for our gold schools, an average increase of cycling to school of 19% for those schools that have achieved gold. A quick overview of the types of stuff that go into those travel plans that you might consider for your own sites and own workplaces, own schools. So it's all about getting a package. It's not just about doing one thing, one incentive, one giveaway, and then magically more people will be walking and cycling. You need a whole package of measures that bring about that behavior change. So in the top half, you need to provide information and incentives that promote the benefits of sustainable and active travel. And on the right-hand side, we need to make sure the correct infrastructure is in place and that people have the skills to travel sustainably. Down at the bottom of the infographic there is the negative stuff we do. And by negative, I mean the stuff that focuses on car use and making car use less attractive. So that's taking space away from cars, but also promoting the negative impact that cars have on the environment and on people's daily lives. Only when you have that full package in place is when you start to see the real modal shift that is achieved by those silver and gold schools in Modeshift STARS. Super quick overview of the types of things that go in there. So in information, we're looking at things like maps, providing people with the information of the journey options that are available to them. Lots of projects around information that could be worked on. And over on the right, the Youth Travel Ambassador Scheme, which I'm going to talk about more in a moment. We've then got infrastructure, so we're looking at things like 20-mile-an-hour zones, better crossings, improved cycle parking facilities, making sure there's enough cycle parking in place. And something that's cropping up a lot, particularly in the current climate with COVID-19, is something called school streets, which is actually physically closing the roads outside of schools at drop-off and pick-up times. We then have incentives, so lots of fun activities to give people super positive experiences of sustainable travel. Things like critical mass bike rides, active travel breakfasts, and then incentivized themed walk to schools as well. And finally, skills. Very primary school focused pictures here, but we've got things like bikeability cycle training, so pupils are cycling safely on roads. Pedestrian training, so pupils are crossing the road safely when they are outside schools, particularly in busy areas outside schools. And we could also add in cycle maintenance and that sort of thing. On to Youth Travel Ambassadors. So what's it all about? Essentially, it's a new campaign. It's been running in London for some years now, but this is a new campaign nationally, which provides young people aged 11 to 16 with confidence and skills to address the transport issues that are directly affecting their school. And it's purely peer-to-peer led. It's not about adults coming in and telling schools what issues they think are the issue. It's about groups of youth travel ambassadors doing the research, doing the consultation, finding out what the travel issues are at that school, and then coming up with campaigns to put things right. And that could be anything from road safety to behaviour on buses to high levels of car use, anything that the group comes up with effectively. Within the Youth Travel Ambassador Resource Pack, we have a scheme of work that sets out the programme to work through. Now, this does work over a term, but it's ideally set up to work over the course of an academic year. And within that, there are 6 PowerPoint sessions that sort of build up, that help youth travel ambassador groups build up their campaigns. And within that pack, there's also example surveys, interview forms, templates for data collection, templates for putting an action plan together, and finally, templates for doing project evaluation as well. There's a quick overview of the program structure here. So generally, the campaign starts with a launch assembly to let the whole school know what the YTA program is all about and to try and recruit a good team of YTAs. Session 1 is then a welcome to the program and sort of setting the scene for what the YTAs might deliver and what they might achieve. Then from that session, pupils go away and do some self-led research, finding out what the travel patterns are at the school, what the travel issues are, and then come back together to discuss all of that and to start to develop a campaign. So there we've got moving into planning the campaign, developing campaign resources, posters, templates, and coming up with your proposal, basically. What we'd like to see then is the development of a pitch to either senior management teams at the schools, senior leadership teams at the schools, or perhaps even if you can get buy-in from outside, from maybe the local council or local businesses, we're looking at putting that pitch in place for funding and approval to go ahead with the campaign. And then finally, once that approval's in place, it's about taking action and putting your campaign ideas into practice. Quick overview of the benefits of becoming a YTA. So you learn project management skills by being put in charge of basically your own project. Collecting and analysing data. So you go away, finding out how all other people are travelling to school, perhaps even how staff are travelling to school as well, and the impact they're having on the environment. Presenting and public speaking. Ideally, we're looking at launch assemblies to the whole school so everyone knows about your campaigns, but then also pitches to key decision makers to get sort of support and funding for the campaign to go ahead. Marketing and promotion. So how, once you've got your campaigns developed, how are you actually going to get those up and running and get people to buy into the messages and what you're asking them to do? And finally, leadership, which speaks for itself when you look at the other things in there, but being leaders for your school and making a difference at your school. And if you need some benefits for your schools taking part to sort of encourage them to go down this route, so the things that they get, they may become eligible for funding for other campaigns from the local authority or local businesses or regional transport bodies. Students and staff get the opportunity to build links with transport professionals and other organisations in the area, probably regionally and nationally as well as locally. Any travel and transport issues that the school are experiencing already, there's a chance that these will be addressed and tackled by the YTA groups. The YTA students will learn new skills that they can pass on to peers. We ideally see this as a rolling campaign that runs year after year, not something that just goes away after a term or a few months, something that you can pass on to future year groups and future cohorts of YTAs to keep it going. And finally, the school can apply for Modeshift STARS accreditation with the work that the YTAs do to tackle transport issues at their school. That was a super quick run through, but essentially the call to action is to look at getting your school signed up to Modeshift STARS if they're not already. Make sure they've got a school travel plan, get them working towards national accreditation that's backed by the Department for Transport. And then if you're interested in setting up a YTA group for your school, do give us a shout. We can provide those resources to you, can provide the toolkit so you can begin your journey and start looking at addressing and looking at those travel and transport issues for your school. Thank you very much.